Welcome to another edition of 1 in 15. This one, I'm going to include a little trigger warning. My guest and I are going to talk about some issues to do with mental health, and just be aware of that as we go through. As ever, I'm going to get my guest, however, to introduce themselves.
Hiya, I'm the mental health coach, and I'm all about getting back your mind mojo with me, Jo Rowe.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jo. It's really great to have a chat with you today.
Thank you.
As you know, 1 in 15 is all about that one big thing kind of dominating people's thinking at the moment. What is that for you?
So I think lockdown 2.0, as it's being called at the moment, seems something that's really relevant at the moment. I think we've learned a lot from the first lockdown, but there's big changes and shifts taking place in the second lockdown. So I was relating it back to my mental health back in 2013, and I've picked out 3 particular areas that I can resonate back in 2013 and back into lockdown at the moment. So I thought that might be a good starting point to maybe talk around those 3 areas. Yeah.
Right. Tell me what they are then. Let's go for it.
Okay, so I'm thinking the first one is around job and job losses and security at the moment. So back in 2013, my job was at risk, and it caused a lot of stress. My workplace became an unhealthy place to be. A lot of uncertainty and anxiety.
Yeah.
So I was starting to get early warning signs of what was happening then. And also another thing in lockdown at the moment is there's probably people caring for relatives or loved ones, and they're in a support bubble at the moment. So there's only one one family allowed to join that support bubble. So that's already causing issues, I would have thought, especially at a really difficult time when we're caring for family members.
Yeah.
So again, back in 2013, I was caring for my dad alongside my sisters, and I'm just imagining not having that full support now, and it just being myself who would just be supporting, and putting myself in a situation of people who are maybe caring for others at the moment, and the absolute, again, stress and anxiety that starts to cause, even just doing it on your own, as well as having the support of others around you.
Yeah.
And then I think that the third area that is the socialising aspect's gone, and we've not got that. So again, back in 2013, a lot of people who know me knew I used to burn the candle at both ends. I used to drink really heavy. I'd be working all hours, and again, I wasn't looking after myself properly. So I wasn't eating well, I wasn't exercising, I wasn't sleeping properly, excessive drinking. And I'm thinking now in lockdown at the moment, there's probably a lot of that going on, people turning to drink. They've not got the socialising outside, so maybe there's more drinking taking place of alcohol at home, and opening that bottle of wine and then opening another bottle of wine, which again, it's maybe a coping mechanism and one that's not as healthy to turn to, whereas there's lots of other ways where we can build in more healthier coping mechanisms. So yeah, I'm sort of resonating what my life was like in 2013, where I started with stress, then anxiety, then I ended up with chronic fatigue syndrome for 3 months.
Yeah.
And then following that, I had depression. And then I had my first bipolar manic episode, which had psychosis, which includes hallucinations and delusions, and led to being in hospital. So I'm really keen that we nip these things in the bud, that stress is that early warning sign, and anxiety is that early warning sign to start to make those changes in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. And like everything you say resonates with me. I've had other conversations with people. We're really acutely aware, aren't we, at the moment of the stresses that we're under, and the stresses that those we care for and those we interact with are under, but not necessarily consciously acting in positive ways to mitigate that. You talked about that drinking. I've seen some of the stats on alcohol consumption, people putting on weight as well, maybe comfort eating a little bit, and other habits that are I'm not holding a mirror up either, and other habits that are less than positive. That I think you're right. What I heard you say is that kind of it's quite a challenge, isn't it? Because in the moment it feels like it's helping, but actually we're potentially setting up behavior patterns that are going to be really damaging and really hard to break. You know, we're not necessarily just talking about alcoholism, although obviously that's something that might trip people up, but other habits that people are forming, that to get those endorphins going, to feel alive, to feel like they're not working, to feel that they're not carrying all these different weights of stress. So it's really, really interesting. And as you rightly said, if we're not careful, particularly those of us who've got, you know, kind of a predisposition, it can be quite a slippery slope that we can go down, and maybe get down quite a long way before we've even noticed. So if people are listening and they're going, oh, yeah, there's a couple of tick boxes there, I can resonate with some of the things that Jo's been saying. What can you advise? What should they be thinking about doing?
Well, I think, I mean, just looking at what we can do and focusing our mind and our attention on the things that we can do. You know, we've got the outdoors. So there's, you know, the three fundamental things is the eating well. Yeah. So, yeah, I like to indulge at a weekend. Life's all about balance for me. However, I eat really nutritional food, so I'm a bit of a NutriBullet blaster, so I don't like to eat great loads of vegetables on a plate, but what I do is I blast it and enjoy it that way, and generally eat a really good diet Monday to Friday, and that really helps with my concentration and my energy levels. And then the sleeping is really, really important, especially for myself, because if I lose sleep, that's when I become really unwell.
Sure.
So it's about how we can start to quiet the mind down and be able to have a really good, healthy sleep pattern. So it may be things like, I love my baths. I call them bum burning baths. And I have lavender on my pillow. So I've got a really nice routine. That's just, it's not even a routine, it's just a way of life now to aid really good sleep. And then the exercise. So I'm not a gym bunny. I do love swimming, but there's limits at the moment. So I've got dogs. I'm lucky I have my dogs. So I go out for a walk in nature and enjoy my dog walks. So they're just three things I'm doing at the moment that I've always done, that I continue to do, that serve me really well. Caring for people. There's lots of support out there from charities and other organisations as well that can offer support for people who are maybe feeling a little bit alone in it all or overwhelmed. And jobs, oh my gosh, there's so much help out there for people who are maybe seeking to look for new jobs. What a great opportunity to change career direction and to sit and reflect. I'm getting so many clients coming through going, this is a great opportunity to do something different and start to find their life purpose themselves. So yeah, I think it's just flipping the way you look at things and reframing it and looking at what positives we can gain from this.
Sure. Yeah, and all that stuff makes sense. There's a couple of things again that I'm thinking about when you're saying that. Like, one is, we're recording this on National Kindness Day, which is kind of one of those things that I've probably engaged with before, as you know, it's a little bit twee. But this year I put something out, and it occurred to me as I was writing it that perhaps more than ever, that the first bit of kindness that we need to practice today and going forward is towards ourselves, because often, you know, this kind of pressure, you know, you mentioned people who are caring for others, and that's really essential. Those with long-term illnesses. I've got 3 kids who were in lockdown at one point. You know, that kind of, we can't avoid those responsibilities, nor would we want to, actually. But if we don't, it's that kind of cliche of you can't pour from an empty cup. You know, you've got to make sure. So practicing that kindness. And the other thing that occurs to me is, like, everything you said makes sense, and we know it. But kind of the genius is switching from a place of knowing it academically to actually living it. And I've had a lot of conversations like you with people who kind of actually, the fact that they're not eating well, the fact that they're not sleeping well, the fact that they don't get enough exercise is an extra source of stress and anxiety to them. They don't feel that they can fit it in. Have you got any tips for people like that who know what they should do, but they just can't get around to doing it?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pressure in lockdown of what we should be doing as well. And that word should be taken out. If you're using the word should, don't do it. Focus on what you want to do. So I use it as one step at a time. So it may be you've got a goal of something you want to do. I don't cook, so I'm not going to bake a cake. But I love walking my dog. So for example, that might be my goal. I walk my dogs 3 times a week or 5 times a week. And it's tapping into my values. So what's important to me? Well, it's my dogs are important to me.
Yeah.
Tapping into my beliefs. Well, I believe if I go for a walk, I'm going to feel better afterwards. What do I need for that? I need the dog leads, I need the poo bags, it might be raining, so I need to get something warm on. So think about all the resources that I need for that. And is there anything else I need to achieve that?
Yeah.
And that's the process I sort of follow. So it's about not putting too much pressure on yourself and focusing on what you want as an individual, what's going to motivate you, and tap into your own motivations. So yeah, it's following that. What do you value? What's important to you? What do you believe? What have you got at hand to be able to do that and follow that goal? And that's one small goal, which makes a big difference, and it's one step at a time.
That's really, that one step at a time thing as well. That's so important, isn't it? It's like I think a lot of us, we get defeated by goals, by good practice that we want to adopt, by challenging bad habits and adopting good ones, because we see where we want to end up, and we don't remember that is a journey in itself. I think some of my friends have getting quite anxious about exercise because they would have normally gone swimming, like you've mentioned, or other things or maybe to the gym that just aren't available to them. But you say, well, actually, a fairly brisk walk around the block might be all you need. Getting the fresh air, switching your brain off as much as you're able to might be good. You don't have to suddenly convert to a 10-a-day perfect diet. You just have to maybe cut down on 1 or 2 of those comfort foods that are not good for you and replace it with something better. You don't have to go from hardly any sleep to instantly getting every minute sleep that you want. You just make those improvements, and what is possible. What is that next step? When I worked in education for quite a while, and I always used to talk to the young people and in fact the staff at the schools about that. I always say that the next step is the most important thing. It might even be exactly in the wrong direction, but that gives you some momentum, at least, that you can then kind of turn it around. So if anyone's listening to us who's really struggling and kind of anxious about the fact that they're anxious and kind of twitchy about the things that they want to do or should, as you say, Joe's given us that right challenge there, remove the should and look at what is possible, look at what you could do. And I would say personally, kind of do the bare minimum, but build in room for doing more. So give yourself permission to do more than the bare minimum. Don't just settle for the bare minimum, but where the bare minimum is all you can do, celebrate that and do that at least.
Yeah, absolutely. And some days I might only put a sock in the wash baskets, and other days I may work 12 hours and come up with lots of genius stuff within my work. So it's being kind to yourself as part of that process, and it is that one step at a time. So what is your main focus at the moment, and what one thing can you do today or in the weeks coming that's going to serve you well to move you forward to where you want to be, that's going to help you to be kind to your own mind.
Well, Joe, we've probably only got about a minute or so left, and we've kind of ended up in the place that I often want us to do, of that kind of hope and possibility. Is there anything else you want to say about if particularly those people who feel that they're weighed, who maybe are a bit nervous about how they can make that next step or identify what that next step is? Any advice or of hope or possibility for them?
I think the hope is that in 2013 I was in a secure mental health hospital, and I was in it, and there is always hope, and that's the thing that actually got me through those really dark times, is that there is hope, and looking at where I am now, it's possible. I'm not special, and it is absolutely possible. And coaching was a big part of that wellness. But there is absolutely hope. So I think the word hope is the thing that takes me forward.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's really, really, really helpful, Joe. I think that's such an important thing for all of us. I think remember that. We've gone through hard stuff before, maybe not exactly like we're doing today, and we've got through it. Sometimes we've needed medical help, sometimes we've needed therapeutic help or coaching, or just somebody to kind of cry on if we've needed it, but we've got through it. and not being afraid to use those resources or ask for that help is going to be a really significant really significant thing for people as well. Jo, the mental health coach, you've been an amazing guest. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you for inviting me, Andy.